administrative system of the university compared to what we had earlier. Ago. One is that administration is more responsive, and they follow digital development and digital kind of administration. So that brings speed to the administration.
Okay, about 90% of the services are being now under.
Very good, because compared to what we had, we used to every day afternoon or 3 o'clock we had to catch a bus to Trivandrum and wait.
With your permission. Hello.
Yes.
Hello. With your permission, we start the session, sir.
Yeah, we are ready. Because we are just
okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, yes, ready. Okay, ready.
Ready, sir?
Yeah.
1 minute, sir. 1 minute. Please start. Chandni, please start.
Yes.
Good afternoon, one and all. Today, I welcome all the dignitaries, resource persons, and participants to the national webinar, Kerala Freedom Struggle, Memorable Events and the Darkness of Colonialism, University College Trivandrum, in association with the ICSSR, Government of India, as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav from 18th October to 20th October 2022. So, freedom is a fundamental right and essential element of human existence. The Indian independence movement is developed through a constant ideological evolution. The anti-colonial struggle was supplemented by the visions of independent, democratic and republican ideals and the civil liberation political structures. The role of Kerala in the history of freedom struggle marks its distinctiveness through the history, agitations and the colonial resistance movements. These movements incorporate the efforts from the side of Christian missionaries, social reformers, political leaders, and the marginalized unsung heroes. As we all know, the European colonial powers acquired the earliest footholds in India was at the Kerala coast of Malabar and started their expansionist policies. There were several episodes connected with the resistance against the imperialist powers in Kerala, but they failed to gather a nationwide attention and recognition in the historical narratives. Among this struggle, there are several contributions made by the marginalized and the unsung heroes of history.
Sir, kindly unmute yourself.
No, he's not in the platform. He left, I think.
No, sir. He is in the platform. I think that he is mute his mic.
Somebody can give him a cell phone call.
Yes,
No, we can give him a call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Please continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, you are
Hear
audible.
me? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
You're audible, sir. You're audible.
To all of you.
Thank you.
The address is to be given by Dr. Stephen, Principal, University College, Trivandrum. Happy welcome to you, sir. Next in the line is Dr. Das.
Thank you, Suraj.
Also cordially welcome Sir P. Professor, Government Arts College, Calicut, and also Dr. Mano Mohan, IQ Coordinator of Kerala, sorry, University College. I come to the solicitation. At this moment, we also welcome research scholars, faculty members, and other dignitaries present here at this gathering. We hope that this webinar will be a fruitful one and serve an inspiration to conduct more webinars of this nature in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable votes. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Robinson Joske, Assistant Professor, Department of History, for giving a welcoming address to our chief guest, Dr. G. Gopakumar, sir. So, Dr. Robinson Joske, sir, please kindly join.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So it is my proud privilege to introduce Dr. G. Gopakumar, sir, as our chief guest and to inaugurate our 3-day seminar. So Dr. G. Gopakumar is the Assistant Vice Chairman of Political Science, Vice Chairman, Credit and System, and a Director, V.K. Krishna Menon, Center for International Relations. He also served as coordinator, Studies Center, Survey Research Center, and UDC Special Assistance Program, the University of Kerala. He was also Director General of the Institute of Parliamentary Affairs, Government of Kerala. He has served as professor at the Kerala University for 15 and has 35 years of teaching and research experience. He has published books, over 155 research articles, and fully guided 28 PhDs. An internationally renowned electorate in Kerala in 1996, won several international and national fellowships, and Cultural Exchange Award, International Visitors Leadership Award USA, Salzburg Award, Full Scholar, Shastri Mobility Award Canada, Shastri Indo-Canadian Award, University of Calgary and Medal University, Visiting Professor, University of Calgary, Canada, Visiting Professor, Fairmont Graduate University, USA, Australia India Council Senior Fellow, Monash University, Melbourne, Visiting Research Fellow, University of New South Wales, Sydney, and Songkhla University, Thailand. He is a member of several national and international bodies, including Indian National Commission for Cooperation with UNESCO, and served as chairperson for peer team visit. He also served in the Executive Council of the Central University of Gujarat. He declined the Fulbright Scholar in Residence Course at the Morgan University, USA, in order to accept the Vice Chancellorship in the Central University of Kerala, which he joined on August 2014. He completed the Vice Chancellor of the Central University after 6 August 2020 and now Trivandrum. He is currently involved in various academic activities, served in numerous national committees, besides participate in healthy media debates and other socio-cultural meetings. Now, on behalf of all the participants, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. G. Martha.
Thank you very much. So can I begin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So good afternoon to all of you, Dr. Shaji, Dr. Suresh, Dr. Suraj, Dr. Sivadasan, also the Principal, University College Trivandrum, research scholars and dear students. I'm very happy that you're organizing a 3-day webinar with the support of Indian Council of Social Science Research, a body in which I am very actively involved and serve in several committees of the ICSSR also. I know about it. And this project is to share our experiences and observations about India's freedom movement as well as post independence developments. That is a very purpose of this project called Amrit Mahotsav. And the idea is that we should understand the background from where we had come and the trajectory through which we are proceeding further as an independent country, as an emerging liberal democratic republic. This theme of this is important. It addresses the issue of the freedom struggle in Kerala and the memorable events and also the dark pages of colonialism. Just to give an introductory or a kind of a inaugural brief talk, this is true of the whole country. As students of history might be knowing that colonial India consisted of 635 princely states, besides British directly administered regions of Calcutta, Delhi, Mumbai, and Chennai or Madras. So, besides these four metropolis, 635 princely states constitute a huge continent, and the British directly and indirectly administered all these regions. As far as the present Kerala is concerned, we have integrated the three historically geographical place. So the colonial powers never bothered to achieve progress and development in the Malabar region. But Travancore and Cochin were different. And today we are trying to discuss about the trajectory of freedom struggle as far as the three regions of Kerala are concerned. And the webinar focuses upon mostly the memorable achievements and accomplishments and some of the dark days of colonial system. So if you look back and see from where we had come, kind of accomplishments we unilinear path, it had different variations in different periods of time. It was not in a well-organized fashion or form. As some of the students of history may recall, Travancore had slavery up to 1858. Travancore and Cochin had both these kingdoms had caste pollution, untouchability, social reform movement. The reformation that took place in the society, particularly the Hindu society, being very, very significant. I will come to that in a moment, but let me say that the two factors, the freedom movement as well as social reform movement, it somehow supplemented each other because the freedom movement led by the Indian National Congress also took care of the social progress that society demanded. At the same time, social reform movement spearheaded by every prominent caste of Kerala was instrumental for the revolutionary transformation of the Kerala society. As early as 1903, Srinarayana Guru organized the Srinarayana Dharma Paripalana Yogam. In the same year, you will find the Nambudiri Yoga Shema Sabha being organized. Similarly, in 1914, the Nayar Service Society was launched, And in 1907, the Sadhujana Paribalana Sangam was organized. So what is significant is that not only that every caste organized itself, but they tried to champion the cause of a humane society, a liberal society. It was this exactly that went into the struggle of social reform, which in a way overshadowed the freedom movement in Kerala. Of course, in Malabar region, the Congress movement was very active because as early as 1907, a district Congress committee was launched. And since then, several other initiatives were organized, including the one that All India Congress Committee met later in Payyanur, as educate and definitely agitate. These were the mottos of the social reform movement. I'm glad to see that every community has produced its leaders. For example, the prominent Idava community was led by Sri Narayana Guru, Dr. Palpu, and many others, Kumar Nasan and many others. The Nair Service Society was championed by Manat Patmanabhan. Even earlier, Chattambi Swamigal also produced important spiritual appeal to the community men. And similarly, among the leaders who appealed to its brothers and community men to fight against all kinds of social evils that prevailed in the society, in their community. And remember Mahatma Ayyankali agitating and challenging the feudal community, saying that if you do continent. So the Temple Entry Proclamation started in 1924 with Vaikam Satyagraha and ended up on 12th November 1936 by a revolutionary declaration from the royal palace that all Hindu temples will be open to all communities of Hinduism, and this at that time was a revolutionary declaration. In fact, I remember Karan Singh, the son of the former Maharaja of Kashmir, Hari Singh. So Karan Singh came to Kerala University some years ago, and in one of the speeches he said that his father was so much influenced by the kind of Temple Entry Proclamation made by the Maharaja of Travancore, and Kashmir was the second Hindu kingdom to declare all Hindu temples open for the Hindu community people. So first was Travancore, second was Kashmir. Remember, from one end to the southern end to the northern end. So you can just imagine the kind of Indian society at that period, and even untouchability and caste system was so rapid. And consider that along with the social reform movement, that's very powerful leaders, there were also some progressive-minded people, even among the administration. So Maharaja of Travancore, who got Europe English education, and also visited Europe, he must have seen the changes that happened across the world. And this must have also appealed to him, along with other factors, to ensure that the temples shall not be restricted to the upper caste alone. So this was a very important event as far as one of the significant, memorable events of the freedom movement. And similarly, there were many other events. There is no point in bringing all these things, but one of the controversial chapters remain, especially with the 1921, the Malabar Rebellion, otherwise called the Malabar Rebellion, which continues to remain as a very important controversial chapter with the Khilafat movement. But Mahatma Gandhi thought that this is I'm trying to support Khilafat, as you know very well, the across the world. So in India, Mahatma Gandhi thought that this could provide an opportunity to ensure Hindu-Muslim unity, and therefore struggle against Britishers to ensure that the violent, the landless peasants, mostly Muslims, but moved against the richer people, particularly the Hindus, and it ended up in violence. In a greater length, it ended up in heavy bloodshed, and Hindus were killed in the struggle, and Gandhi was pained, and he understood that his movement to ensure Hindu-Muslim unity did not succeed. So Khilafat movement remained a very controversial chapter in India's freedom movement. Gandhi, as a result of which even some sections near in the present area of Malappuram district even organized a separate kingdom to ensure that they are challenging the British authority. So it went violent, it went communal, and it was an attempt to raise an Islamic state, and finally the British suppressed the struggle. It continues to remain controversial after 101 years as well. So this was another dark the post-independent era. But anyway, Travancore State Congress and Cochin Pradhamandal also took part in the kind of freedom struggle in the coming years to come. And we also had a struggle for what is called the responsible struggle for responsible governance. And the struggle for responsible governance became intensified because you find at one point of time Maharaja of Travancore and the palace thought of keeping in an independent Travancore. This idea of independent Travancore itself is a very controversial one in Indian history, Indian political history, because at some point of time we conceived the idea that it was mostly C.P. Ramaswamy who was instrumental to advise Maharaja to keep Travancore an independent state. But Professor in Travancore Kingdom, he found that the idea of an independent Travancore originally took place from Kavadiyar Palace itself. And but after a while, once C.P. Ramaswamy was attacked, and the kind of freedom struggle in getting its intensification, definitely Travancore could accede to, was willing to join Indian Union soon after independence. So Travancore was one of the kingdoms that immediately joined Indian Union, despite a minor protest or a minor kind of a dissent that had in the royal system. But otherwise, the kind of movements were very, very significant. And I should mention that there were also another important struggle like Punnapura Vailar, the Kayur Rebellion. So there were many movements. So actually, the freedom struggle spanned, if you take against an idea about the larger idea of anti-colonial struggle, in fact, it started much, much earlier. Even not in the 19th century, even the 18th century itself, the struggle had started. That doesn't come to the mainstream history. But if you look at the kind of struggles led by Kunyali Mareka, Parsi Raja, or Velithambi Delava, so these struggles, and even the Colonial War against the Dutch, if you take struggles against Portuguese, against the Dutch, and finally against the Britishers too. So we had a long history, which unfortunately did not find much place in the mainstream history. Even Vaikam Satyagraha got its prominence very lately only. Otherwise, by and large, our discourse about freedom struggle is mostly about the conventional role that the broad Indian freedom struggle highlighted. The regional struggle did not find much space. But as of now, it is catching attention. And as students of history and teachers of history, it is your responsibility to see that the regional histories are brought into limelight. Regional histories, regional anti-colonial struggles, and important struggles for equality, liberty, and fraternity that took place in the pre-independence period has to be highlighted. And as teachers of history, you can help in bringing up regional history and create a larger volume of the discourse of freedom movement. So this is a very important time now. We are passing through the 75th year of India's independence as a nation, and a lot of responsibilities. But post-independent India overcame many of such struggles, as simple statistics can prove, like our average lifespan of an Indian was 36 years in 1947. Now it is 67 years. The total number of universities were 25 in 1947. We are including innovation and space and research, information technology, but many more to come. But at the same time, if you look from where we had come, certainly we have improved, but we do have many, many miles to go ahead to see that this country becomes really vibrant and truly secular and liberal and democratic. I appeal to all young students of history and teachers of history to highlight the kind of historical developments in the freedom movement, particularly at the local and regional level, so that we will get a comprehensive view of the freedom movement and also the social reform movement in different.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your precious time with us and also for your valuable words. Next, I invite Dr. Saji Stephen D., Principal, University College Trivandrum, for the presidential address.
Good afternoon. Respected Chief Guest, Dr. G. Gopakumar, former Vice Chancellor, Central University of Kerala, who inaugurated this program. Dr. Shivadasan P., former Department of History, University of Calicut, who's delivering the keynote address, Dr. A. Shaji, Professor, Department of History, University of Kerala, who is presenting the theme, Dr. Priya P., Associate Professor, Department of History, Government Arts and Science College, Kozhikode, Dr. Manomohan Anthony, IQSC Coordinator, Dr. Suraj, Head of the Department, and Dr. Suresh J., Webinar Director and Department of History of this college, and dear teachers, students, and participants. I'm very happy that the Department of History, University College Trivandrum, along with Indian Council of Science, Social Science Research, ICSSR, position for the last consecutive 5 years in the state. I'm happy to know that a lot of programs are organized by the Department of History to help research scholars and students in the pursuit of research activities and studies. Workshops and discussions planned by the department would surely increase the research output of our institution. This program, which is meant to promote social science research in the country, will be useful to share new information and ideas. And I appreciate the organizing committee for the sincere efforts taken by them in arranging such a webinar. I hope all the research students would actively participate in the seminar and make use of this valuable opportunity. And I wish this program a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable words and for being a part.
The year of Indian independence. As all of us are aware that our freedom struggle is a unique, distinct movement for liberation happened in the world. And we see, the problem of the beginning of our freedom struggle is also a controversial issue. Some claim that it started in 1857. Some argue that it started with the founding of Indian National Congress. And some say that it started with the participation of people in the 1920s. But I believe that we started our freedom struggle immediately after the arrival of the European people. And the Keralites are in the immediately after the landing of Portuguese people on the western coast. Kunyali Marikars and the feudatories in the western coast started their fight against the colonial rule, and we see the echoes of this anti-colonial spirit in many documents, archival documents and publications of the 15th and 16th century. We had started our freedom struggle. We had a rich cultural history background, and these are given not properly space in the history of India and the history of the Indian freedom struggle. K. Rajayan, who was a professor in the Madurai Kamaraj University, brought forward his thesis, South Indian Rebellion, telling that around 1800, several feudatories and the ordinary people joined together as a confederation to fight British colonialism in South India. At that time, North Indian people were what they aimed was the re-establishment of the old feudal system, which existed prior to the arrival of the Europeans. But from 19th century onwards, we see people joining together and organizing themselves as the Indian people and fighting colonialism in a new manner. And this new manner was taken from the British themselves. As all of you are aware, 19th century was the period of colonial modernity. This modernity helped us to understand, to organize ourselves by learning lessons from the European rule and developing our own modernity against Europeans as national modernity. As Partha Chatterjee and others have pointed out, multiple modernities emerging in India in the 19th century. So we see our freedom struggle as a census reports of India starting from 1871. We can see the censusing and enumeration of the effort of imposing Hindu identity upon the Indian people from 1871. I have gone through the census reports of 1875 related to Kochi and Travancore, where you can see the Brahminical officers imposing Hindu identity upon the Malayali people in Cochin and Tiruvidampur. Till that time, we were not identified as Hindu people. So the colonial rule was responsible for imposing this identity upon the Indian people and trying to divide Indian society on the basis of religion. That was the planting the seeds of communalism, and a new system began to emerge. Immediately after the publication of these census reports from 1880s onwards, we see caste and communalist movements began to taking birth in different parts of India and changing. Naturally, the ordinary people by the early 20th century began to take interest their liberation from not only from foreign rule, but also from the clutches of feudalism and also casteism. So by the outbreak of the First World War, we see the Europeans, by their investment, began extreme exploitation of Indian resources, and India began to face people's reaction to colonial rule and feudalism in a great way. I said Professor Gopakumar talking to us the issue of Malabar Rebellion. He says that Malabar Rebellion is a most controversial issue in Indian history. And he also commented that it is a dark chapter in the saga of Indian freedom struggle. I disagree with those 2 points, because these two struggles were not only aimed at the British Raj, but also the landlordism from the Kerala soil, Malabar soil. And the ideology they received was Islam and also Indian ideology of the Indian National Congress. Meanwhile, they were also influenced by the revolution that happened in Russia in 1917. You can see people belonging to different communities giving leadership to the Malabar Rebellion of 1921. MP Nayar kept in prison for 14 years, 14 years by the British Raj, just for giving leadership to the Malabar Rebellion. So the Malabar Rebellion, if you go to the deeper part of that issue, you can see that it was a movement of the ordinary poor people to fight landlordism, which was existing in India with the protection of the British Raj. It was a British Raj which was dividing Indian society into Hindus and Muslims. Naturally, there was no other way than fighting these two forces in a joint hand. So, stamping these goal, the content of the aim of the freedom struggle to a different direction. So, this is taking place all over India. There is a purposeful move to criticize our freedom struggle. There is a purposeful move to belittle the contribution of Mahatma Gandhi. There is a purposeful move to darken the secular. So we wanted to create a new India. If you read the writings of K.M. Panikar, he has written a good book on the saga of Indian freedom struggle under the title Foundations of New India, in which he says that the most important foundation of the Indian freedom struggle is the secular infrastructure. It is the secular infrastructure that uphold the democratic values after 1947, which was planted by Gandhi and the leaders of the Indian freedom struggle. Similarly, our Indian freedom struggle was not a sponsored event of Indian National Congress. Large number of people belonging to different ideologies, different groups, and India to abroad also took part in the freedom struggle under the banner of different ideologies. So it was a complex movement. These are to be studied in that way through scientific methodology. Only that help us to understand what was our freedom struggle from Muslim Indian freedom struggle. But at the same time, after 1920s, the ordinary people, workers, peasants, women, tribals, etc., all of them joined together to fight British colonialism. Thus, our freedom struggle became a mass movement. The basic element of that mass movement was secularism. And our Indian democracy is byproduct of that. So, history is not just studying the past as events. It gives us experiences of failures and successes. And by learning these experiences, we have to shape our future. And that future is to be a society, is to be a movement for a society where all people are equal, irrespective of caste, and communal identities. So let us join together to have a scientific exploration of the Indian freedom struggle and enrich our values. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish all the success.
City College Trivandrum to organize a national seminar on a topic of vital importance. At the time we have been celebrating our 75th year of Indian independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It is indeed a happy occasion to share some of my views as a part of the theme presentation. Due to the paucity of time, I am constrained to limit the scope and content of the presentation by taking the request of the organization in good spirit to take minimum time for my speech. So the pertinent issues and notable developments in the freedom movement in Kerala has already been addressed in this platform by the earlier speakers. And hence, I think it is inappropriate to repeat these things again. I would like to highlight the neglected areas in our freedom movement from the mainstream historiography, particularly the unsung heroes of the freedom movement in the country in general and Kerala in particular. India's long-drawn struggle to free itself from the foreign rule has been a saga of valor. I think somebody has unmuted the mic. Bindu PS. Bindu PS. Bindu PS, please mute your mic. India's long-run rule has been scholarly or popular on the experience of those who fought freedom at the grassroots level. Perhaps it is because of India's multifarious identities, languages, caste, ethnicity, gender, religion, economic status, and how that impacts whose voices get heard in national narratives. Perhaps it is because the state views events of the past as a vehicle for the politics of the present. It is also interesting to see that the political parties in power may very often engage in India's histories and not interested in restoring the lost truths. Vernacular histories, as Pata Chatterjee has once puts it, seek their legitimacy in the domain of the popular. And for a deepening democracy in the country, we need to embrace some have been overlooked, omitted, or simply forgotten over the years. There are less Rani Srivastava or Pir Ali Khan or Kamala Devi Chadabhataya or Tirupur Kumaran or Rajakumari Gupta Lakshmi Sagar, Birsa Munda or Alluri Sida Ramaraju, N.G. Ranga, Velu Nachia, Tirot Singh, Maniram Devan, then Beswan Singh, Kittur Chennamma, then Kartar Singh Sarabhai, Vijay Singh Pathak, etc. They were fully neglected. And coming to the Deep South, there are very little or no reference on valiant fighters of the freedom movement. We could see scant reference in the mainstream historiography in the participation of such persons as K. Kumar, A.V. Kuttimalu Amma, Akkama Cheriyan, Muhammad Abdul Rahman, Wakkam Abdul Qadir Maulavi, V.K. Krishna Menon, Veliyangota Umar Kasi, or Kannavatthu Sangaran, Kaideri Ambu, or Chetturi Kelappan, William Kanaran, Velukutti Nayar, Shekharan Nayar, Menon Raman, Ani Maskrin, or M.B. Narayana Menon, etc., etc. So many persons have been not at all highlighted in mainstream historiography. The history of Indian freedom struggle would be incomplete without mentioning the contributions of women. The sacrifice made by the women of India will occupy the foremost place. They fought with the true spirit and undaunted courage and faced various tortures, exploitations, and hardships to earn us freedom. When most of the men freedom fighters were in prison and women came forward and took charge of the freedom struggle. The list of great women whose names have gone down to history for their dedication and undying devotion to the service of India is a long one. Perhaps no other popular movement. National Congress was the mainstream, but not the only stream. There were peasant movements, trade union movements, tribal movements, revolutionary terrorist movements, Khadar movement, Home Rule movement.
മുഖ്യ പ്രഭാഷണം നടത്തിയ ശിവദാസൻ മാഷ്, ഷാജി സർ, അവർ സുരേഷ് സർ, മറ്റ് പ്രിയ അധ്യാപകരെ, പ്രിയമുള്ള കുട്ടികളെ, ഇന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഇന്ത്യൻ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരത്തിന്റെ ഉണ്ടെന്ന് ഞാൻ കരുതുന്നു. കാരണം നേരത്തെ മുഖ്യ ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് പോകുന്ന വെല്ലുവിളികൾ, കാരണം പ്രസക്തി തിരിച്ചറിയേണ്ടത് കാര്യങ്ങൾ നമ്മുടെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമരവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. നമുക്കറിയാം, ചരിത്ര വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾ എന്ന നിലയിൽ ചരിത്രം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എല്ലാ ഭൂതകാലവും ചരിത്രമല്ല, മറിച്ച് വീണ്ടെടുക്കപ്പെട്ട വസ്തുതകളാണ് അവ ചരിത്രമായി. ഉത്തരമലബാറിലെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമര സേനാനിയായ വിദ്വാൻ പി കേളുനായരുടെ നായർ ഒരു കവിത, ഒരു പാട്ട് എഴുതിയിരുന്നു. ആ പാട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെയാണ്: നാളെയാണല്ലോ നമ്മൾ നാൾ വരെയും കാത്ത ഈ നാട്ടിൽ ഗാന്ധിതൻ തൃക്കാൽ വീടുകളിൽ പോയിട്ട് പാട്ട് പാടുമായിരുന്നു. അന്ന് ഇന്നത്തെ പോലത്തെ ഉള്ള കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ രീതിയൊന്നും ഇല്ല. അതുകൊണ്ടായിരിക്കണം കുട്ടി വിവരം ആളുകളെ അറിയിച്ചെന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്.
Saji Stephen, our beloved respected principal, inaugural address done by Dr. Gogomar sir, the former Vice Chancellor of Central University of Kerala, Dr. Shivadathan from University of Calicut, and Dr. Shaji from University of Kerala, and Dr. Priya, and our respected HOD, Suraj, and the coordinator of this seminar, Dr. Suresh, and all other faculty members and research scholars and other faculty members from the different parts of the Kerala. I am very happy to be here to say something about the facilities opportunity to congratulate the entire team of the. I gone through the seminar brochure. It is I am very much found that many of the sessions having different type of discussion are being going here. I am coming from a science background. I am a zoology teacher, so I don't have enough knowledge, little knowledge in the historian area. But in my teaching, more of time coming the evolutionary part, I try to present my topic in the evolution as in the form of a history. So. By the beginning of the inaugural session, I just hearing that all the facts, many of the facts are very novel to me, and I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to utilize for the utilization of the many of the research scholars. And maybe I think that our principal already that mentioned about the different facts of the college, and our college is actually preparing for the NAC fourth cycle visit in the 2023, and this event is surely an asset to the NAC preparation, and our next year NIRF ranking also be getting. Principal already mentioned about we have the 24th and the first in the Kerala, and this type of events are very good to the IQSC. On behalf of the IQSC and as a representative of the all other faculty members of the college, I extend all the success to this program, and I think that maybe after the seminar, this seminar maybe produce a proceedings of this seminar, and surely if we are not planning to do that, surely I have a humble suggestion that surely a proceeding of the seminar to be prepared and it to be released, and that should be an asset to the IQSC as well as their college. And once again I extend all the success to this program. Thank you.
Respected participants of this seminar, welcome to this webinar. Today we have with us Dr. Mahin. He is the professor of history in Calicut University. He is known to me for the last 13 years, and I have met him for the first time in Victoria College, Palakkad. he came there to deliver a speech, and that speech was very wonderful. And in that speech, I came to know that he's a very expert in the field of theories of history. He delivered some theories which were quite unknown to me. And he's not only known for his knowledge in the field of theories of history, but the application of theories in local as well as national conditions. He excellently applied these theories in national as well as local issues, which is also very much interesting. He is also an expert in the field of microhistory and history of Kerala. He has written several books. He also had written articles. And another important peculiarity of Dr. Mahin is that whenever he is called to participate in any seminar or webinar, he sought out in that. He immediately gave consent for that without having any hesitation. And he had visited University College several times and delivered lectures on different topics. So we are very much happy that we have such a resourceful persons for today's session. The topic that he is going to present is faded profiles, memories, being unseen faces, and heard voices in freedom through a feminine optic. So the topic reveals that it is very interesting. And on behalf of the people who have assembled in this webinar, I invite him and welcome him to this webinar. Thank you.
So, good afternoon. Am I audible, sir? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
First of all, I am very sorry to say I am in Calicut University and with a very poor internet and other connections. I am very sorry. If it is broken during my speech, kindly call me or kindly give me a hint. Not audible. I am very sorry. Respected dignitaries and the organizers of the seminar, learned professors from various colleges, departments, Dr. Suresh, the convener of the seminar, other faculty members of University College, Mr. Scholars, my dear students. Good evening, all of you. I am here with some scattered thoughts, with some scattered thoughts on the question of femininity, the question of nationalism, question of colonialism, and also the question of modernity. I would like to present a paper entitled Faded Profiles, Hashed Memories, Probing Unseen Faces and Unheard Voices in the Freedom Struggle Through a Feminine Optic. My paper is related with a seminar organized by the esteemed institution, University College, under the title Memorable Events and Darkness of Colonialism. Shall I start, sir? Shall I start? Suresh, sir, shall I start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The discussion on unsung heroes is an attempt to recall and remember forgotten heroes of our freedom struggle, many of whom might be renowned, unknown to the new generation. Their ethos and principles ought to be recalled and respected, especially on the eve of celebrating the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, or Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. As a part of the ongoing event, this great institution has extended an invitation on me to deliver a brief sketch on the significance and various vistas on the struggle for national independence. Once again, I thank for the organizers of the seminar for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts on the particular topic. I start my speech with a few lines of a patriotic poem. The poem reads as I quote, "The desire to lose our heads is now in our hearts. Let us now see how much strength there is in the arms of the oppressor. Today, the killers taunted from the guillotine platform. Is there somebody else who would like to sacrifice his or her life for the nation?" Question. When the time for departure to my death approached, I could not even tell her that the tears that fell in her lap from her cheek, consider them your children to calm your mind. Bande Madiram, long live our country. These are a few lines I got from the poem, a martyr's wish, written by Ram Prasad Bismil, a true nationalist and a revolutionary from Shahjahanpur in Uttar Pradesh. He had played a key role in the Kakori train Decosti case. Before he was hanged by the Britishers, he wrote it in an ambiguous language, masking love for country as love for a beautiful beloved. The poem was sent to majestic men and women throughout the country, whether they were revolutionaries or supported Gandhian non-violence. More importantly, it reflects the drama of separation from loved ones, the domestic upheavals, and the ways in which individuals engaged, experienced, and witnessed the nationalist movement. Social scientists have engaged with varied methodological and theoretical approaches and perspectives in trying to understand the Indian nationalist movement. In particular, these debates have emphasized the importance of understanding the ways in which women were positioned in relation to colonialism and nationalism, as well as their involvement in the nationalist movement. Though women's relationship with nationalism and colonialism was ambiguous and problematic, historical accounts unanimously agree that the nationalist struggle in India against the British colonial rule brought about the political mobilization of both men and women. However, immediately after Indian independence, mainstream historical perspectives engaged themselves in discussing the indigenous social classes in Indian society and how they interacted with the colonial elite. Sadly, these accounts, the nationalist school has been criticized for uncritically emphasizing and glorifying the role of a few great leaders. I quote, a few great leaders in the movement. However, in its pursuit of projecting the movement as homogeneous, some forms of social division within Indian society were overlooked. It is thus not surprising that gender relationships, specifically women's participation in the movement, are not clearly addressed. The Cambridge School of Historians, J.H. Broomfield, Anil Seal, C.A. Bailey, David Washbrook, Judith Brown, etc., viewed nationalist politics primarily in terms of the British and colonial elites. It also credited the British colonial elites with having trained the native population in the ethics of parliamentary democracy and then handing over those. Amongst the historians of the Cambridge School, very few have made references to women's activities in Indian society, and no particular sense of the significance of women's political consciousness or their nationalistic contributions were accounted for. Significantly, women were actively involved in nationalist politics from the middle of the 19th century. For example, women formed organizations for social reform in which issues related to women were addressed and women voiced their opinions were unheard of. The late 1970s and 1980s saw the emergence of a new body of historical knowledge, which referred to itself as subaltern studies, which dismissed the males would be used by the colonial rulers to justify their rule in India. It has been argued that women's close and necessary relationship with the nationalist movement, they covered limited reforms such as the right to vote, education, and property and equality within the legal process. These reforms had little effect on the daily lives of the masses of women. Neither did they address the basic question of, and administrators redefined the roles of women within families in accordance with changing political demands. The emerging new woman was modern, but at the same time representative of the national culture and traditions of Indian society. Women leaving their homes and coming out on the streets is well documented. We need to understand the lives of those ordinary middle-class women who could not cross the domestic threshold. How did these women engage with the nationalist politics despite social constraints of parda, segregation, and low rates of literacy? What activities did these women undertake in the domestic sphere, and what were their perceptions of the movement? So these are the questions. One can substantiate these absences from the conception of sociology of absences, which refers both to the general silences around particular experience, a product of colonial modernity. Partha Chatterjee would argue that nationalism in India, which was assigned a privileged position by its Western-educated political leadership, was a different but a derivative discourse from the West. While the early nationalist school focused primarily on the supremacy of a nationalist ideology and a national consciousness, this awareness of nation was based on a commonly shared antipathy towards colonial rule, a feeling of patriotism, and an ideology rooted in a sense of pride in India's ancient traditions. As I already noted, for example, C.A. Bailey has recently searched for the prehistory of nationalism. Indian nationalism, he thinks, built on pre-existing sense of territoriality, a traditional patriotism rationalized by indigenous ideas of public morality and ethical governance. It is interesting to note some old imperialistic assertion of authors like Valentin Schirol that politicization of Indian society developed along the lines of traditional social formations, such as linguistic regions, caste, or religious communities, rather than the modern categories of class or nation. The most important catalysts of change in this context were the institutional innovations of the colonial states, notably the introduction of Western education and political representation. The orthodox Marxist school sought to analyze the class character of the nationalist movement and tried to explain it in terms of the economic developments of the colonial period, primarily the rise of industrial capitalism and the development of a market society in India. I think it is fair to look at Indian nationalism from diverse ideas as a site of political contestation. Yeah, nation building is always a process of continuous adjustment, accommodation, and contestation. It is from this historiographical position of recognizing the multiplicity of responses. Earlier, there were so many legends, so many legendary figures already addressed by many speakers like Idachena Kaumudi teacher, Kunyi Kutti Tamburati, Kutti Malu Amma, Margaret Pavamani, etc. etc. The list continues. They strove hard to maintain the pride and prestige of the south of Indian subcontinent. They sacrificed their very valuable lives for the cause of the nation. But they were posted, in brackets, they were posted in as faded profiles and remained unseen faces. They were blurred, their faces were blurred and their voices remained unheard of. Unless and until these legendary figures remain incomplete. So it is our prime duty to remember, to venerate, and place them very close to our hearts. You may imprint them on your hearts. And let every breath of yours give expression to it. As we are the true citizens or responsible citizens of India. And we must always enchanting the mantra. The mantra is Mera Bharat Mahan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammad Mahin, sir, Professor, Department of History, University of Calicut, who despite his busy schedule has found time to grace this occasion. Thank you, History, for his valuable contribution. I invite Dr. John S.P., Assistant Professor, Department of History, to invite Dr. Shan Yugain Palakal, Assistant Professor, Department of History of Stella Maris College. Sir, please.
Shan? One minute, John. 1 minute.
Shan, am I audible?
Hello.
It's muted. So Shan, please unmute. Shan, please unmute your mic.
Shan, please unmute.
Yeah, I think she's. Okay, right. Okay, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce and welcome the resource person of this session, my friend, Dr. Shan Eugene Balakil. She was my senior MPhil scholar in the Department of History, University College. Actually, her MPhil dissertation was one of the well-researched studies submitted in our fellow. She selected a very challenging research problem, that is custodial violence in Kerala. I still remember her enthusiasm and efforts in collecting those inaccessible documents. Yeah, but some like echo like thing.
Because I have opened my laptop and the mic is not working on my laptop, but it's working on my phone. I have a PPT also. So should I close?
Please close and join again, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, right. I think Shani is presenting a topic, a theme that is refiguring the role of women in the freedom struggle through their writing, freedom movement. On behalf of the Department of History and on behalf of fellow participants, I welcome Dr. Shan Eugene Palakal to deliver.
Yes.
Over to you, Shan.
Thank you, Dr. George. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Finally. I'm sorry I'm not able to open my video because when I open it, the voice is doubling. That is right. I'm sorry for the technical problem the last minute. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Gopal Kumar, former Vice Chancellor, Saji Stephen, the principal, Dr. Shivadasan sir, Dr. Shaji sir, Priya madam, and Dr. Suresh for giving me the opportunity to present a talk on refiguring the role of women in freedom struggle through the right. These two art national among the freedom movement struggle, and they also wrote a number of pamphlets and poems. Like we have Sushila Devi, she spread a lot of awareness by delivering lectures at various places. So these were tools that were done usually used by my men, and not much women had participated in such as such role models. Women to all these men by even having literacy classes and doing other constructive work by going to these Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, Sarup Rani, they all had participated. Lado Rani Zutsi, she also had written a lot of poems. We have Arun Asif Ali, who released a monthly magazine called Inqilab. So as it goes, media controls mind. And here we have many women writers that helped shape independent India. We have Subhadra Kumari Chauhan. She was the earlier poetess, and she had a reporter of poetries, have influenced people who love poetry, and through to people who read these poems, they get incited by a spirit of nationalism. So it's not only men, but even women had partaken a great role in influencing people to join the freedom struggle. We have before that we had Sarojini Naidu, and she was one of the earliest Indo-Anglican poets. She was called as the Bulbuli Hind, and she was considered as Indian Yeats. Her poems had occupied a lot of role in the thematic aspect of love, death, religion, patriotism, women's freedom. And so most of her poems had an introductory theme, which is very lyrical, musical. So we should commemorate all these poems in the senses to make aware to our future generations or our present generations how these minds of these poets and writers had worked a totally different aspect so as to induce a spirit of patriotism. Even from one of our poem, The Gift of India, which is in most of the what do you say poetic books, you have these lines, these five verses of the poem, The Gift of India. And it says, when the terror and tumult of hate shall cease, and life be fashioned on anvils of peace, and your love shall offer memorial thanks. So it's a dedication to all these comrades and freedom fighters who are martyred during the freedom struggle. Then we have Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. We have few national freedom fighters and very few freedom fighters from every state that I can relate to who are women poets or women writers. We have many men, but coming down to women, we need to understand that they have taken up a bold step, because writing is not a very easy thing, and penning down anything that is concerned with freedom struggle going against the British policies was not easy, because for each and every small what do you say event that happens in every street, immediately they arrest them based on picketing or any kind of going against the British policies. So they had to be very careful when they came to writing of many of the works. Even Vijayalakshmi Pandit, in her prison days, her work, she wrote her autobiography, which is The Scope of Happiness, a personal memoir. It has been read by several people, and I think it should be circulated among each and every student of our institution, so as to make them realize how difficult it was for women to partake in such incidents and to pen them and to make an awareness about the spirit of patriotism among each and every. So women and all these what do you say, help the women volunteers to participate in those freedoms. They felt a sense of awe, because all these years they were in shackles, and suddenly with this woman freedom fighters coming out into the open and going against the men, against men who were also not liking that women were coming out in the open and writing a lot against the Britishers. So this ship Rani Devi, who is also a very unsung woman freedom fighter, she was called the captain, one who led women volunteers. Not much is known about her, but she also was the legendary wife, legendary Hindi literature, Munshi Premchand. So all of us know Munshi Premchand, but we would not have heard that she also was a freedom fighter, and she wrote a small account of how these women freedom fighters had participated in the freedom struggle. So it was called as Sahas, which means brave. So she showed So it shows how she was brave enough to go with to go against the Britishers. And we have Usha Mehta, who also was a student at the time of this Quit India movement. And she joined the movement because not only she belonged to one of the educated and liberated families, but because she wanted to want the people to understand that it's not hello then that it is not only the educated or the educated uneducated who can join the freedom struggle, but the people who have the mind to and the soul to fight against the the British policies, to go against the right as to go against the male dominating society. Even though these females they try to change the perception of such orthodox people, they still were not on a smooth journey. They had to do household chores and they had to take care of their kids and not only sacrifice their life but for certain combat issues, but also they had to fight against the British by mitigating all odds. And pen as a sword was the only means by which they could fight with their words. And this ignited a spark of patriotism in the hearts of everybody who read their works. So Indian women, they felt this was an easiest and they broke away from restrictions and struggles. They were awe-inspiring. We have Putti Malu Amma coming to in prison for a role in inciting, in the minds of the other women who were still at home and they hadn't broken the shackles of aggressiveness and suppression. She also later became the founding members of the All India Kerala Women's League and the Women's Indian Association. So women like these, we should understand, and books and pen play an important role had played an important role in inspiring women to be participants of the freedom struggle. And English literature, even though it has spread together with the expansion of vernacular language, we have Annie Besant's autobiography that had influenced Kamala Devi. So it was one work influencing the other person's work. And finally, I would like to conclude that even though many writers in the last few decades and during the freedom struggle had wielded pen as a sword against the British, the women's movement have matured progressively because of their works. And we still need to read their works as it can progressively enlighten our understanding about the women how they struggled all those colonial years and those memorable events of colonialism, dark memorial events of colonialism, because their movement have deepened its relationship with other movements like union movements, environmental movements, other progressive movements, and now we have a lot of feminist movements die out. It should be commemorated as the struggles were awe-inspiring. Thank you.
In this session, we have analyzed the role of women and their spirit in the freedom struggle through their writings. I do hereby convey my gratitude to Dr. Shan Eugene Palekal, Assistant Professor of Department of History from Stella Maris College, for sharing her valuable ideas on this topic. Now we are moving to paper presentation session. The link for paper presentation will be provided. Once again, thank you, ma'am. I also announce that this comes to the first technical session's end.
Thank you, Ashley.
paper presentation link is also provided. So please join. This link is for paper presentation. It is another link. Now the program came to an end. Then the next session is started to the next link. So please join for paper presentation to the next link. It is provided on the this meet also. Thank you.